I've seen so many lab tech videos where the presenter opens a box, flashes a glossy spec sheet, and says, "This is the best incubator you'll ever need," only for the researcher, who actually puts plates inside to discover hot spots, noisy fans, or cramped chamber that forces them to reshuffle experiments. It's frustrating because the product pages look perfect, but the real-world experience can be a total letdown, especially when you're trying to keep cell cultures alive and data consistent. That's why I wanted to do a deep dive on the BenchMark Scientific H250570 SureTemp Dual-Convection Incubator before anyone spends a big chunk of lab budget on something that might not fit their workflow. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, this isn't a budget incubator that you'd slide onto a bench and forget about. At 70 liters, it sits in the middle of the small to medium range, which makes it a candidate for a teaching lab, a biotech startup, or a mid-size academic group that needs a dedicated space for tissue culture, microbiology plates, or enzyme reactions. The dual convection system is the headline feature, promising uniform temperature distribution across that whole volume. In practice, that matters when you're running a 96-well plate, and you can't afford a few wells sitting a degree hotter or cooler than the rest. Those tiny variations can skew assay results and force you to repeat experiments. The fact that the system also advertises rapid recovery after door openings means you won't spend a half-hour waiting for the chamber to settle before you resume work, which is a genuine time saver in busy labs. Who should consider this model? If you're already using a single-zone incubator and you've noticed edge effects on your plates, or if you're moving from a fridge-type incubator that relies on passive heating to something with active airflow, the H250570's dual convection is a logical upgrade. It's also a good fit for labs that need to log temperature data automatically. The included SureCheck logger and its companion software give you a digital audit trail without having to buy a separate data logger kit. For labs that already have a separate temperature monitoring system, that might feel like a redundant extra, but for most small to medium setups the bundled logger adds real value because it integrates straight into the incubator's control panel, and you can export the logs for compliance reporting. On the other side of the coin, this isn't the right machine for a high-throughput core facility that needs to run dozens of 1-liter flasks at once. The 70-liter chamber can hold a good number of plates or small bottles, but it won't accommodate large bioreactors, or the kind of bulk fermentation you see in industrial microbiology. If your work routinely pushes past 70 L of simultaneous volume, you'll end up constantly swapping loads, which defeats the purpose of a stand-forget environment. Likewise, if your lab runs on 230V power and you can't easily get a 115V outlet, you'll need a step-down transformer, adding cost and potential electrical hassle. Now let's talk about the practical strengths that actually show up when you start using the unit. The stainless steel chamber feels solid and is easy to wipe down, which is essential for maintaining sterility. The internal power outlet is a small but thoughtful addition. I've seen people bring a small incubator heater, a timer, or a USB-powered fan for specific protocols, and having a built-in socket saves you from drilling a hole in the door or running an external power strip that can compromise the seal. Temperature stability is where the dual convection shines. After opening the door for a quick plate swap, the system brings the temperature back within the set tolerance in under 5 minutes, according to the built-in sensor readout. That's faster than many single-fan models I've compared, and it translates to less downtime and less risk of culture stress. The software that comes with the SureCheck logger is straightforward, no steep learning curve, just a clear graph of temperature over time and an export button. It's handy when you need to demonstrate to a regulator that your incubator stayed within the required range for a 48-hour experiment. One subtle downside is that the software runs on Windows only, so if your lab standardizes on Mac OS or Linux workstations, you'll need a Windows VM or a spare PC. It's not a showstopper, but it's an extra step you'll have to plan for. Noise is another practical factor. Dual convection means two fans are constantly moving air, and while the unit isn't whisper quiet, the sound level is comparable to a regular lab refrigerator. In a quiet cell culture room you'll notice it, but it won't drown out conversation or alarms. If your incubator sits next to a microscope station, where you need a silent environment, you might consider a model with a quiet mode, which this BenchMark unit doesn't advertise. From a maintenance standpoint, the stainless steel interior resists corrosion, which is a big plus if you work with acidic media. The door seal feels robust and hasn't shown any obvious wear after a couple of weeks of regular opening and closing. However, the manufacturer,